Welcome to another edition of the Sitecore PowerShell Extensions training series. Hi, I'm Michael West. Today I'd like to talk about objects from within PowerShell. We'll work with variables, arrays, and hash tables, and we'll tinker around a little bit with the Sitecore API. And as always, if you'd like to download the Sitecore PowerShell Extensions module, you can get it from the following URL. Check out our blogs and contact us through Twitter. So I'm going to start off with the PowerShell console. It's just a good playground to see output and just run commands interactively. So the first thing I want to do is show you about variables. So in general, variables are going to be they're going to start with the dollar symbol. So you can say that $A equals Michael. So that is the variable. So we've already declared it. If I do $A, then that will output Michael. It'll output the contents of the variable. So A is the object placeholder, if you will, and the dollar is more like saying, let's access this variable A. You can add type information. So it's more of like validation to the variable by placing the type you'd like in the brackets in front of it. So for example, if I did Michael again, it would error saying that $A is supposed to be an integer and you're trying to set it to something that's not. So I could do the same thing, but let's say I made it a string. Then that works. Well, if in the future I want to set it to a different type, well, it works there. So in this particular case, you think that it's actually a numerical one, an integer. But if we recall from last time, I did get member. It's a string. So piping $A to get member shows me that this variable contains a string, which is what we wanted. So once again, this is really good practice if you don't want the data type to change. So if you recall in C#, you can kind of do whatever you want if you're using like an object type, but if you're using like string or int, then in C# you get a compilation error because it won't allow you to set it to a type. And let me go let my beagle out of the door. Okay, I'm back. So I think my beagle Lucy was thirsty. Well, she was at the door. Anyways, being a good doggy daddy. So just very basic, create a variable using the dollar. You set it equal to whatever value you'd like, and if you want to have that variable have a specific type associated with it, well then in brackets you can do that. Now one really good thing to know about PowerShell is that it's basically everywhere you use it, it's case insensitive. Case insensitive. So for example, originally I'd created $A as a lowercase a, and now I have an uppercase A. It still assumes that it's the same thing. So it's not like JavaScript where it's like uppercase, lowercase, or it's not like C# where it's either uppercase or lowercase. It's do whatever you want. And that's going to go the same for comparison. So if you're saying is this string equal to this other string, so for example, let's see, Michael equals Michael. That's true because this equality is case insensitive. So if I want it to be case sensitive, I can do that. If I wanted to explicitly say it's insensitive, I can use the I. But just in general, whenever you're using commands such as EQ or comparisons such as EQ or not equal or greater than and so on. Those are just case insensitive comparisons. Okay, so clear the screen. Okay, so once again, let's create a variable, and we want it to be an array. So one example is if you want it to be an array, you just do comma separated values like that. And if I enter just the variable, it will output the contents of that variable. Another syntax for an array would be the alias or @ symbol, open parens, and then the close parens. You still do the comma separated values. One advantage to doing this syntax is if you're trying to add arrays together. If you had a single value, it wouldn't work because without this, the single value would just be, in this case, a string. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if I do Michael plus West. Okay, so here it's added into one string. But if I do that, now I have two items in an array. So previously we concatenated the string, and now we've added two arrays together, and now we have two separate items. So let's try for numbers. Okay, 1 plus 1 is 2. Once again, you could use the console as a calculator. You could do like 1 times 3. You can do all the basic stuff like you could in the calculator tool. But in our previous example, if I did this, now we have two items. So this is a principle that you need to remember as you use arrays, is that you can do comma separated, you can use this notation for arrays, but when you're going to add them together and you have the chance of having only one value in that array, then you should use this more verbose syntax, because it ensures that you get the results you want versus here where it's just a string concatenation or an addition. So what does it look like if you do it the wrong way? So if I do actually, I think this will work. Yeah. So in this case, it knows that the type is an array, and then you get that. I think one example I did was I think new PS session. So let's try to figure that out real quick. New PS. No. New PS. Okay, so create a new PS session. So one time I was trying to add PS sessions together because I wanted to communicate with more than one server at a time. And so I was creating one session for servers that were like 2003 servers, and then I had another session for servers that were 2008 R2. And when I was trying to add them together, freak out, say you can't, there's no add operation available. I won't spend too much time on that because it's kind of too much detail for today. But that will be an issue you encounter, and that's a good way to get around it. So the next concept would be hash tables. So hash tables are in this syntax. So it's very similar. It's the @ symbol or alias and two curly braces. So an array is that. So one problem is that the font's a little bit small. So if you're like in the PowerShell console, I've increased the font to a size where it's very easy to tell the difference, and it's also a font type where it's very easy to tell the difference. So right now it's little bit small here, and here I've increased it. So in the future you could change your font size and be easier to read. But unless I digress. So with a hash table, you're going to do, it's a name value pair or a key value pair. So I'm going to have something like name equals Michael. And as you can see, as always, if you just type in a variable or an object, it outputs that object to the console. So the only time that doesn't happen is when you set it equal to a variable name. So we have name as the name, and we have Michael as the variable. So to make it a little less confusing, if I say first name, so we see that the key is first name and the value for first name is Michael. So if I want to know more about this hash table, then getMember says, hey, look, it's a .NET hash table, and these are the methods available, these are the properties. So see keys that are available. So if I wanted to do here we see that first name is the only key there. Now you just saw me do something a little bit interesting. So let me clear the screen real quick. So when we do this, this syntax, we've just generated a hash table. And if you recall from math class, I think it's called like PIMDAS, the order of operations, if you put something from within parentheses, that will be calculated first. So by me putting the hash table within the parentheses means that PowerShell will evaluate this first, and now that you've gotten the result of that, then based on that I can get keys. So this is something you can do in C#. So here I'm saying, after I've created this hash table, now I want the keys property on that. So another example of that is okay, so sorry, the computer froze for a second. One example that I commonly use is like getDate. GetDate is a really good command. It's like datetime.now and C#. So if I run that, well, there may be cases where I want to do some additional formatting and then get the results of that. So if I do getDate, there's no way for me to use the dot operator on there. So if I put it from within parentheses, then I know I can use the dot operator. So I can say, I think now, well, I don't know, so let me check it out. Oh, date. So if I did date, and if you look carefully under definition, it tells you the data type. So here I see there's like a system object, there's integers, there's date time. So maybe I want to do to universal time. So you notice that when I ran just get date, it showed me 12 a.m. Well, it's not right anyways. It's supposed to be 12 p.m. Whatever. And if I look at the universal time here, I've got 5 hours. So getMember, powerful command to run. Say use it often. So now that we know how to create variables, such as $a equals 1, and we know how to create arrays, and we know how to create hash tables, We can experiment with working with .NET code in PowerShell, working with the Sitecore API, and just a variety of other things become possible when we do this. One thing that I'd like to mention before I go today is help documentation. If you run help _ star, you'll see an output of all the help documents that are available. So these are separate from when you run like help get command or help get member, where it's help documentation specifically for that command. These help files are more general topics. So for example, earlier when I showed you the comparison operators, the -eq or -ne, this document will talk more about how those work and examples of that. If we want to know about arrays and hash tables and whatever it is, whatever topic, I highly recommend you just scanning through this. This is going to be much better than you trying to Google the results that you want, because you're going to get more information about what people think about certain things and examples of how they solve problems, where this is a very focused documentation on how to use it and examples. So for example, if I want to know about the hash tables, well, I can do help about tab hash tables, and now let me scroll up. So now I see this is the syntax of hash tables. So within the curly brace, I put the name and a value. If I want additional key value pairs, I'll separate it using a colon. In PowerShell 3, it now supports an ordered feature. So basically, the order in which you create the key value pairs is the order that you'll receive as an output. And similar to using like the int or the string, this is just another little attribute you put in front of it. And let's see, yeah, so there's a lot of good information here. You can basically just copy this out and go paste it at the end. And there you go, you get your example. So once again, highly recommend looking through the help documentation. Use get member, use get help, get command, whatever we've shown you so far. Take a look at those. That will really accelerate your experience in PowerShell. It'll help you discover new commands, and you'll just really be a lot more comfortable with working with it. And as always, it's great for you to watch our video, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact us through Twitter or comment on the video. Thank you, and see you next time.